Hi, this is Dr. Julie Hanks, and just a quick update. Since we first recorded, I have decided to step back from activity in the church because of how I was treated and also being called in and questioned by church leaders, and that felt really intrusive and hurtful. And I decided that I don't want to have that power differential in a relationship. So I haven't been participating in church since the beginning of 2025. And I'm doing really well. I have a lot of support, and I am very happy.
Well, Julie, when we met and talked in January, I don't know how we wandered into it, but you had mentioned that you had been getting some attention from the church
Yeah.
about what they perceived as being, I don't know what. So when I heard that you were leaving, I was really curious to know if, well, let me just put it, if you were sort of driven from the church by church leadership, and if so, why? Was it because of your advocacy on behalf of your clients?
Yes, I do feel like I was pushed by how I was treated by leaders and other members who don't like progressive ideas and don't like LGBTQ advocacy or women's equality. And yeah, I do feel like I was pushed out. So it's been a few years now since I was first called in by a stake president and met with an area authority. And that was once or twice. And then more recently, the last time we spoke, I was called in by my new stake president, and there's never been anything official or formal in terms of excommunication, disfellowship, or even specific requests of what I need to change. But just having someone feel like they have the power to call me in to tell me what I should and shouldn't do professionally or counsel me just really was damaging. I mean, and the way he's a great person, the way he did it was fine, but just the power structure, I just thought I just don't want to play this game. I don't want to play this game. And so it was right about the time that we spoke last that I decided to step away. One of the things my stake president said was that, he'd had multiple letters from outside of our stake. So there have been letter writing campaigns by certain groups online who don't like some of the things that I say. And so they would write letters to my leaders, which put me on my leaders' radar. But when my stake president said that people in my ward had complained, that was really, really painful. And I just thought, you know what, I don't want to be somewhere where I don't feel safe.
Well, what do you think? What was your uh, advocacy? I assume did it arise from your podcast?
It was primarily from my social media posts on Instagram and Facebook. The two that were pointed out where I said last year that there was an updated trans policy about trans members of the church, and I said publicly that I felt like it was harmful and perpetuated stereotypes. And then I also said last year when there was a big emphasis on wearing the garment, and I talked about how that felt sexist to me because it's really focused on women wearing the garment because the garment is patterned after male underclothing and not female underclothing. So it's harder for women to wear it with normal women's fashion. And anyway, so those were the only two things that were specifically brought up that uh, were concerning. But I am confident that there was also pressure from above. I know that the area authority and probably even higher up than that had concerns about some of the things I was saying publicly. And basically, you can think whatever you want, but you just can't say it publicly.
I'm just struck by the irony of someone like yourself in this situation, and then you have somebody like Mike Lee, who's out there on the internet saying and doing the most evil, vile things, or
Mm,
other members, prominent and maybe not so prominent, that are participating in this cruel treatment of immigrants.
yeah,
And the church says nothing about that kind of conduct or behavior.
yeah,
But whenever you get close to the third rail, which seems to have anything having to do with sex or sexuality, then the buzzers start going off.
yeah. And that's part of why I just thought, you know what? I want to be able to say what I think and what I think is important and speak truth. And the only thing that's preventing me is or that in my mind is preventing me is that, oh, the threat of church, whatever. And then I'm like, oh, and that use of soft power, kind of giving counsel or warnings, kind of in quotes here, um, it doesn't feel good. And I realized that's really the only place in my life that I allow other people to have control over me and my choices. and I realized I don't want to play that game anymore. I don't want to allow someone to have power to call me in or threaten my membership or I decided that I don't want to do that. And for anybody in that position who's being called in, I think be empathetic, be compassionate, but also be strong. We're grown-ups. I kept reminding myself that like I don't have to go to this. I'm choosing to go, but I don't have to go. And initially, when my stake president had called me in, he did it by text and he wouldn't tell me why. And so I just said, well, I'm not willing to come in until you tell me the purpose of the meeting. And he called me and was willing to tell me over the phone what the purpose was. But I just thought I'm 56 years old. I don't have to go to the principal's office if if they think I'm doing something wrong. So
Well, I would just make an observation. I mean, I've been at this since 1996 with the LDS Church. And, you recall, I'm sure, the purge of the progressives 20 years ago.
yeah,
Martha Beck and Quinn and, you know, uh, the troublemakers down at BYU and so forth. And they were
yeah,
they were driven from the church. And I guess I am a little surprised. I would have thought that the church would have progressed more in 20 years, but they haven't. This is still the same stuff that was happening 20, 25 years ago. Do you have
yeah.
any thoughts on that?
Yeah. The the church has evolved, and some of the things that people were excommunicated for 20 years ago are now taught by the church. But if you get ahead of the church, that's when you get in trouble, right? The church will eventually catch up, but they excommunicate people who are ahead of them on speaking out on certain topics. For example, Maxine Hanks was excommunicated as part of the September was it the September 6th? And Lavina Anderson and for talking about things that now the church openly talks about. And so it's kind of like it has to do less about what you're talking about and if you're talking about it before the church actually gets there.
But how will they ever get there?
They'll get there and there's wreckage along the way. Like the movement is very slow and not everything moves. Like some things haven't changed very much. But it's slow. It's incredibly slow. And people who say things and push back publicly, that's what makes the church change. But there's a cost to that. And that's part of what I'm experiencing. There are lots of different layers. So I try to let myself be a human first and to feel and experience the emotions, right? Of like, oh, that's really painful, and then I can also put on that therapist's professional hat and go like, I recognize that people are doing the best they can, and the concerns come from a place of fear primarily, is what it seems like to me, and I can empathize with that. I can understand that. So I have a lot of support in my personal life, friends and family, and then lots of online support. So that's been really, really tender. Whether I'm active in the church or not is irrelevant to my work with clients. I can 100% support people in the decision that is best for them. My job is not to put my journey onto someone else, is to help them figure out their journey and make choices for their lives. And so, whether I'm currently active or inactive or whatever, that that doesn't matter. I can support people at all phases of a faith journey, or who are very orthodox, because it's not about me and my journey when I'm in the therapy office.
Well, I would just say, in conclusion, that this is not an encouraging development. I was talking a lot on uh, architecture of abuse, that I perceived that the church was making positive progress, but this doesn't feel like it. If somebody who is can't express a humanistic viewpoint, a humanistic approach towards dealing with people who are different,
Yeah.
and that leaves someone like you, who's dedicated your career and your life to that, can't stay in this organization. What does that say to abuse survivors who want to appeal to the church to change its ways?
Yeah.
I,
It's
I just don't think it's
discouraging.
positive.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.